He works the drive on Green, floats the right-hander off the window. No, Gobert offensive rebound, one dribble. Goes back up with the left hand, sits on the cup, falls off. Gobert rips it away from Thompson, puts it back up and in, plus the foul. Rudy. That might be my most favorite call ever, and I'll explain why in a minute. The Jazz have put together back-to-back fabulous performances at home against the Clippers and the Warriors, and now get tested in Portland and Memphis. We'll break down that. Plus, Enes Kanter's free agency, the NBA 5. It's all coming up on a Monday edition of Tip-Off. Pow. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. We do this for you every morning. It's on Locked On Jazz on iTunes and on Stitcher and whatever podcatcher you like to use it on. If you could take a second to give us 5 stars, we greatly appreciate it. You also can follow social networking. I'm on David Locke is kind of my personal site about my life, if you care about that, at Facebook. Locked On Sports is the sports site. We're also on Twitter at Locked On Sports. And we've got a bunch of guys who bust their butt on our Google Plus community, who I'm really appreciative of, who have built a really neat place where they all communicate and chat and do all that kind of stuff. And that is at Locked On Sports Google Plus community. If you haven't checked it out, it's a neat site. Recruiting could have some cool stuff. These guys post the concept of the Google Plus community, and you actually can do it yourself. I can make you moderate if you're interested. Email me at dlock09@gmail if you're interested. The idea is to be one-stop kind of sports conversation spot for Utah. And so right now with recruiting going on, DJ and PK had a great interview up on the recruiting. So we probably should take that, post it on the Locked On Sports Google Plus page. Then you know to catch it there. It's your one-stop spot for all the news and conversation that's going on amongst all the fans rather than getting microsected. So anyway, all right, 2 things I wanted to jump on right before the show starts. Or I guess the show has started. But I wanted to share with you, I went back the other night after the Warrior game to listen to that play-by-play call. Because, frankly, he works the drive on. I understand what broadcasting is. I'm a student of it. I follow it closely. And I understand that in the ilk of the old school broadcaster, it's not who I am. It's never who I'm going to be. I'm trying to do something with the social networking, with the interaction with you day to day that's frankly never been done before out of this position. I'm hoping it's the future in the right way. But also, when I call the game, my goal every night when I sit down, I pick one person in my mind to call the game to them. So I want to bring them on the ride. I want to give them some more information that they might have not had otherwise, some explanation of why things are happening they might not have otherwise via Ron and myself. And I want to give them, some information, really some stuff that makes them understand better by the end of the night. The final thing I want them to feel is that they're sitting next to me in the arena as a fan. Now, that's not what they're teaching you. You know, great Rick Pike is teaching it, Broadcasting 101 at the University of Utah, or some professor at BYU is teaching that. No, that's not what they're teaching, but that's who I am. You guys know that. I ride with the team. I'm up and down. At the same time, I try to be reasonable, which I'll get to in a second. So anyway, this play-by-play call, which might be my favorite I've ever had in my career. And I'm going to play it because I want to share this with everyone. I'm excited. I'm sharing with you as a friend. I've never, this idea that I scream Rudy at the end of the call is absurd. It's as anti-broadcasting. It's frankly terrible from a broadcasting standpoint. Like, what are you doing? Like, if my wife, who was a fabulous broadcaster, was listening, I'd be embarrassed. If Kevin Calabro, one of my closest friends in the world, is the best maybe basketball announcer ever, heard it, I'd probably be embarrassed. Like, not going on a resume tape. If I was making a resume, I'm not, but like that kind of thing. So here it is. And the reason is because I am the fan sitting next to you. We all did the same thing at the same time. He works the drive on Green, floats the right-hander off the window. No, Gobert offensive rebound, one dribble. Goes back up with the left hand, sits on the cup, falls off. Gobert rips it away from Thompson, puts it back up and in, plus the foul. Rudy. Everyone's doing it. It was such an awesome moment that everybody was chanting Rudy at the same time. I just love that. All right. We're on team. We're online together. All right. I don't want to talk football But I do want to. I have a thesis statement that I share with you guys a lot about this. I used to say this when I hosted Lockdown Sports all the time. People are not idiots. Okay? People are not idiots. There might not be a greater example of what looks like an idiot move than not running Marshawn Lynch on 2nd and an inch to win the Super Bowl. My 9-year-old daughter was at the game. She says, Dad, you got to punch that in. Okay, I agree. I think it's a bad call. It's somewhat horrendous. But it's not an idiot move. This is kind of maybe the greatest example I can give on this. There's a logic to it. There's one timeout because you've wasted 2. That's really the crime here. You're trying to maximize 3 plays in this sequence instead of 2. If you run on this play, call timeout, now you have to pass on set 3rd down. And if you get sacked or you don't get in, game's over. You don't have timeouts left. Or you can run twice and you only get 2 running plays, which might have been fine, but it's not 100% to 0% discussion. Offensive coordinators are trained, if they're good, Darrell Bevell's good, to know these things, to think off this off the top of the head. There's probably somebody on their staff whose job that is, who probably said, hey, we got to he probably knew on 1st down that they had to throw on 2nd down. For all we know, it was predetermined before. They've kind of waived. They haven't really committed to answering that question. Before, there's a logic to it. There's a reasonable decision that was made. Was it the wrong decision? Evidently. Would I have been fine with 2 chances for Marshawn Lynch to win it? Probably. Mathematically, they might have been right. They really might have been. There was about a 12% chance they're going to throw an interception. It happened. Cost them the game. Otherwise, it's probably a decent chance they're going to get a false start penalty too, then they're throwing anyway. I mean, it's bad, right? It didn't work, and it's taking the ball out of the hands of your best player. But it's a little bit like an NBA 2-for-1. Even the kind of a bad shot on the front end of a 2-for-1 is worth it because it only has to be half as good. If you're getting 3 plays for 2, you got a better chance to win. Got my point? All right, let's move on to the NBA 5. Hey, Rudy, why aren't you talking?
This is Rudy Gobert, and you are Locked on Jazz.
Thank you, Rudy. All right, some big news. Kind of a weird Saturday, by the way. I feel like it got lost because obviously we were so focused on the Super Bowl, but some weird things happened on Saturday and some moments you might look back at and kind of take stock in, frankly. But the big news is Dwight Howard's knee is a problem. And might be some lengthy period of time. They're talking could be a few weeks, could be a month. If Rockets stay above water, James Harden probably can win his MVP right now. But it seems like that's a bit much to ask. And this is the problem with the way they've been built. Is there's not a lot of depth. They're trying to piece it together, and maybe that's the brilliance of Morey's numbers is that he can find a way with Monty Eunice and guys like that to be able to get through this, but it doesn't necessarily seem like that's the case. So that's the first big story, is that Dwight Howard likely to miss a month in the Western Conference. The second one is there were 2 games on Saturday that got to kind of open your eyes. I mean, you have to make sure you don't overwhelm the importance of one game, and have to understand the circumstance and everything that's flying around. But on Saturday, the Clippers, who are playing very well, went into San Antonio and won by 20. And everybody played. The second one was Memphis held Oklahoma City to 74 points. Now, here's what's happening with Oklahoma City. If you recall, earlier in the year we talked about this. They had the easiest schedule in the NBA to start the year. They played virtually nobody. And now they're playing, teams that are really good. And now I watch them play. They're playing with this pressure to try to survive, understanding I think they're down 3 now to Phoenix, who also lost, got hammered by the Warriors the day after we played them. And it strikes me that they are just playing with such pressure. The other one, and we talked about this as well on Tip-Off, was the Kevin Durant injury to open the year with Russell Westbrook coming back changed everything in that team. And here's what I mean by this. When Westbrook got hurt, Durant was the number one guy. Ibaka would step up, but Westbrook could just come back in. When Ibaka got hurt, when Durant went down, for the first time when Durant went down, all of a sudden Westbrook became the number one guy. Reggie Jackson became the number 2 guy. Ibaka was stayed at number 3. Now all of a sudden when Durant comes back, everyone's got to readjust to their old roles, and that doesn't look very comfortable right now. They're way off. In the month of January, they were 23rd offensively, 10th defensively, and 19th overall. They've yet to show any real sign that they're ready to make any type of run at all. In fact, Phoenix was much better than they were. Phoenix was 11th overall in January. 8th best offensively, 19th defensively. Not great defensively, but, it's eye-opening. Here's an interesting one, by the way. Dallas, since getting Rondo's defense has, in fact, gotten much better. They're 8th defensively and 5th offensively. They slipped from being number 1 offensive team in the league down to 5th, but they've become much better defensively. Maybe they're a better playoff team. The Warriors, despite Atlanta not losing a game, I think, for the month of January, the Warriors were the number 1 team in January. Atlanta was 2. The Clippers were 3rd. Number 1 offense, 18th ranked defense. Defense doesn't seem great, but their differential is really what matters is 3rd. And then we get to Memphis. Good old quiet Memphis, who added Jeff Green. The Vince Carter injury is significant, but they added Jeff Green, so they might be all right. 13th best offensively, 4th best defensively. What's interesting is I always am a big believer you have to be top 10 in both to really be a title contender. The Warriors, the Hawks, and the Mavericks were the only teams in the month of January that were top 10 in both. The Dallas Mavericks and the Warriors, the only 2 teams in the West that were top 10 for the entire month of January. It's not the greatest samples. For the season, the Warriors and the Hawks are now the only 2 teams in the NBA that are top 10 in both offense and defense. The Clippers are number 1 offensively, but 16th defensively. Dallas is number 2 offensively, but 14th defensively. But as we just said, they've been better than that. Portland, who we'll see next, is 11th offensively, 5th defensively. Memphis is 10th offensively and 7th defensively. They're top 10 both. Maybe Memphis is legit title contender. That, my friends, is the NBA 5.
Hi, Jazz Nation. This is Trey Burke. Thanks for being the best fans in the NBA.
Thank you very much, Trey Burke. How about that performance against the Golden State Warriors by the Utah Jazz? What a win. All-around performance. Everybody stepped up. Everyone played well. Lots of different aspects to it. That's about as good as you can be. And here's what I love. If we take a minute geeking out on the numbers, the Clippers came in here as the number 1 offensive team in the league on Wednesday with 110.8 points per 100 possessions. The Warriors came in at 109.6. Okay, so if you combine those two, it's pretty easy. You just add 0.6. So 110.2 is the middle line of those two. Now, it comes out all right. I mean, we played a very, very slow game against the Clippers. We actually played a pretty slow game against the Warriors as well, and it's interesting to me that the Jazz have been able to dictate tempo in both their last 2 games. I think there might be really something to playing slow with this team and being able to play power, and I've actually always been someone who believes in playing slow, not fast, but I think we could discuss this another time, but my point just quickly on that is the amount of fast break points every night is very low. And so even the teams that are getting the most fast break points every night are doing at a very low number. So here, I'll give it to you now while we're here. The Warriors are at 21 fast break points a night. Phoenix is at 19, and then Houston's at 17. Those three teams fast break more than anyone else in the NBA by considerable margin, actually. All the rest are down. The minute you get, next thing is you're at 15 with everybody else. So the Warriors' DNA is they fast break. I'm not sure most teams can play the way they do. The Suns' DNA is they fast break. They're at 19. And the Rockets are at 17. Those teams are the fastest. If you take those out and decide that if your entire persona is not going to be the fast break, now you're down to 15 fast break points a night. Teams convert on probably 70 to 80% of their fast breaks. Okay, well, 15 fast break points a night is probably 8 buckets. If you're converting on, 75% of those, you're probably getting 11 fast break opportunities a night out of 90-plus possessions. It's a very small part of the game. I agree that, easy buckets are important. Getting into your offense early with a push is important, but the league average is 95, 96 possessions per team. If you're only getting 15 fast break points a game, you're only, and so in those 15 fast break points, you're using 11 or 12 possessions to get them. It's about 15% of your offense. So I kind of have always liked this slowdown approach. Now, back to where my point was before I interrupted myself. If you take the Warriors and the Clippers for the season and take their offensive ratings and combine them and divide by 2, I've now lost you. But you're at 110 point, you're about 110.2. That's where you are. The Jazz in 2 games against the 2 of the best offensive teams in the league held them to a 105.4 combined. They held the Clippers to 110.6. That game was so slow. We played 84 possessions. It was so slow that actually holding them to 90-plus points was misleading. But we held them right at their league average. And then we got the Warriors probably on an off night and held them to 101. I love both those performances defensively. If you can play the best in the NBA and hold them to their average, then you're at worst an average defense. And then if you have some good nights along the way, you move up. We were 30th in the league defensively last year. To hold the Warriors and Clippers at their average or well below in the case of the Warriors, really big deal. Really big deal. Pretty fabulous night. Clipper game was not as good defensively as we felt it was at the time because of pace of play, but still pretty cool. And then you go to January. What are we learning about this team? I was using it. I actually kind of started my mark on this team as December 14th when we went to Washington. But let's take it from January. And January includes playing Atlanta, who's the best there is, playing Chicago, playing Oklahoma City, playing Houston on the road. All 3 of those, playing the Warriors twice, playing the Spurs, playing a hot Cleveland team, playing the Clippers, and playing the Warriors. All right, so we played in the month of January. We played 15 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the 15 against elite teams. We played an even amount home and road, and for the month of January, we ranked 17th offensively, 15th defensively, and 18th overall. Only 18th overall. Whoa, cool the Jets. We were 30th last year. 29th maybe. 18th means we're in the middle of the pack. Listen to the teams on each side of us. 16th was Toronto, 17th was Portland, 18th was Utah, 19th was Oklahoma City, 20th was Miami. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. This team was middle of the pack in the month of January, playing a majority of elite teams and an equal amount home and road. Pretty awesome. Should be really excited about what this team is doing. That doesn't mean we're not going to go get our handed to us tomorrow night every now and then. We're five. I got asked this question today. We're 500 over the last 22. Someone said, "Does that mean we're gonna be 500 for the rest of the year?" I was like, "Gosh, I can't imagine that. That's so far beyond what I would have assumed is possible for this team." But maybe. I don't think so. I think that's too much. But big test in Portland and back-to-back against Memphis and Phoenix. We're playing the best of the best. We're gonna have a dud somewhere along the way. I think Golden State had a dud the other night. We came out, we got ahead 20-10. We hit them early, and we never relented. We never relented. And I think that's the big thing that happened the other night. We played 48 minutes. We didn't let them get back in the game, and we played very well defensively. The length on Curry between Exum and Millsap was a big deal. Klay Thompson looked like he may have been celebrating his all-star appearance, and we never let him get going. And the opening 5 minutes of the third quarter in that game, the Warriors made their push, and then you looked up, and all of a sudden the Jazz were still up by 15. On the ongoing conversation of the bigs, by the way, Quinn's playing whoever's playing well. I got a little testy with PK the other day, probably inappropriately. I probably should go back and listen to it and see if I owe him an apology. I haven't done that. He's playing who's playing well. How about the night from Derek quietly the other night? 15 points, but 2 steals, 3 blocks. G-time was mammoth. 26, 15, and 6. It's mammoth. Rudy, another double-double. It's good stuff, man. Good stuff in that game. These guys are playing really well. Some of the 5-man lineup data is getting interesting as you get more and more time with these different lineups and how they play out and what they're taking place. No lineup the other night played more than 9 minutes on the floor together. It's really surprising. Starting lineup was plus 10, 20-10 in their 9 minutes. And then the bench unit played 8 minutes the other night, and they won 18-14. So you're seeing kind of these different units do these different things and these different combinations, and Quinn kind of masterminding all of it. It's very interesting. Pretty soon we're going to have enough data to look at Trey and Dante together and see if it really works. So anyway, lots of great stuff in that game. Jazz kind of ran away with it. There's just nice, fun, exciting things going on. Let's take a second and look at Enes Kanter's free agency. I think it's relevant a little bit because, frankly, this is what the Jazz are trying to project right now as we move toward the NBA trade deadline and try to figure out what we're doing with our pieces and how we're constructing things and where. Here's the market that's coming up. Now, the big boys on the open market are Marc Gasol, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap, and Kevin Love. Isn't it great that we can include Paul in that conversation? I would assume that Love, Aldridge, and Gasol all stay where they are. Love's a little bit of a wild card, but I think Cleveland's going to turn this thing on and make the NBA Finals. So Atlanta gets interesting. New ownership, where they are, what do they do about Millsap? I think that's interesting. So let's put Millsap as an open market guy. DeAndre Jordan, free agent. I think the Clippers probably pay him a buttload. And I'm not sure how much Ballmer worries about the tax. Okay, so those 3 hold. Greg Monroe is an open market guy. Is Detroit willing to max him out now after all this? Is this where Detroit's going? Is this a major piece for them? Have they figured out how to play Drummond and Monroe together? It's an interesting question. Because that's a key spot there. So that's 6 free agents that I think are fair to say are ahead of Ennis. Al Jefferson is a free agent. Interesting. What do people think of him? Roy Hibbert can opt out of his contract. Tyson Chandler is a free agent. Now, those 3 are interesting, Jefferson and Chandler particularly, because they're older. They're better than Ennis. There's no development aspect to it. And Roy Hibbert's interesting because he's still a defensive problem a little bit. So it's interesting to see what you think is going to happen. By the way, with Drummond and Monroe on the floor this year, the Pistons are plus 2.4. It's one of their better 2-man lineups, and they're holding teams to 100 points per 100 possessions. Might be working. Funny how this league works. If you put 2 bigs on the floor, you still defend. Okay. So Gasol, Aldridge, Millsap, Love, DeAndre Jordan, Monroe, Jefferson, Hibbert, Chandler. So we got 10 guys that I think you put ahead of Ennis, depending on what a team's goals are. Brook Lopez is a free agent, in all likelihood. I think he can opt out. David West is a free agent. Again, every team situation is different, but that's 12. Now you get into some interesting discussions. Tristan Thompson or Enes Kanter? Robin Lopez or Enes Kanter? Amir Ashik or Enes Kanter? Can't score a lick. Good defensive rebounder. Good, decent around the rim. Not great. Amir Johnson or Enes Kanter? I love Amir Johnson, by the way. Kosta Koufos or Enes Kanter? Jordan Hill or Enes Kanter if Jordan Hill doesn't get picked up on the team option. This one you might think I'm crazy on this one. I might be crazy on this one, even to mention it and discuss it. Kevin Seraphin or Enes Kanter? Seraphin's not terrible. Seraphin's probably equally as young. He's born in '89. He's big. He's 6'10". He's 278. He's actually probably very similar to Enes. Shoots 54%. He probably doesn't put up 20 and 10 quite the way Enes did the last few nights. He doesn't defend the rim either very well, I don't think. But he averages 7 points and 4 rebounds and, limited minutes, about 17 minutes a night. Playing behind Nene and Gortat. Where does Enes rank in that group? And here's why it's relevant. One is, if the Jazz still think that Enes has a chance to learn how to play the game to help his teammates win, then I think that sounds like a pretty sparse marketplace for Enes. I mean, I think I could make a legitimate argument for every single player I mentioned ahead of Enes. I don't think that's totally true, but I could make the argument. If I'm in a front office, I could make the argument. Enes is a really interesting player. On one level, he's averaging 20. He can put up 20 and 10 in a way that very few players can. On the other level, he's the last in the NBA at rim protection. And his overall instincts for the game are developing. But he can put up 20 and 10, man. I mean, there aren't a lot of guys who can put up 20 and 10. Don't kid yourself, right? Let's run it that way. Can Kevin Seraphin put up 20 and 10? Nope. Can Jordan Hill do 20 and 10 very often? Maybe. Kosta Koufos? Nope. Amir Johnson? Nope. Amir Ashik? Nope. Robin Lopez? Nope. Tristan Thompson? He can put up the 10. I'm not sure he ever gets to the 20. Brook Lopez? Nope, because he can't get the 10. Let's not undervalue 4 offensive rebounds a night. 4 offensive rebounds, I'm going to keep saying this over and over until people start kind of... If he jumped a passing lane and made a fast break and made 3 of the 4 layups on the fast break, we'd think he's the greatest thing ever. But an offensive rebound, he just kind of grabs it, puts it up and in. We don't react quite the same way. By the way, I lied. Thaddeus Young has slipped to 60.3%, and Enes Kanter's at 60.1%, and Boris Diaw's at 60.1% as well on rim protection. Tariq Black, Ryan Anderson, Brandon Davies, Paul Millsap. Jordan Hill is right there at 56%, not very good at the rim. Gorgui Dieng in Minnesota doesn't really know how to play the game in a way defensively, instinctually. Nikolai Pekovic, Josh Smith, Al Jefferson, Greg Monroe. Look at this. All these guys we're talking about as free agents suddenly fall into this list. Kevin Love on this list. How important is rim protection? I actually kind of think that Mark Jackson is saying it wrong all the time. I think rim protection is important if you have one of the 5 or 8 guys. The Jazz have one. Rudy Gobert is down to 37.1% opponents shooting at the rim against him. The next closest is Serge Ibaka at 40.5. That's a big deal then. Hassan Whiteside is the new Rudy Gobert at 41%. Andrew Bogut's a big deal. Jan Mahimi in Indiana with Roy Hibbert combined. That's why they're such a good defensive team. But they very quickly get to 46, 45%. And so if you start to compare, by the way, the 45% to the 55% guy, there's really the amount of time that we're talking about 10 percentage points over 5-6 shots a game. It's almost got no impact. You start comparing the 37% to the 60%, now you got an impact. So maybe rim protection's overrated. But I think this is interesting. I don't see a robust marketplace for Enes Kanter in the offseason. Everyone always says, he'll get paid. By whom? Find me the team. With Gordon, you could kind of walk down the list and be like, okay, if it could be Cleveland, could be shot. I mean, you kind of knew, right? Like you could play the game and kind of figure it out. Who's signing Enes? And then if no one's signing Enes, then from a Jazz standpoint, I'm certainly keeping him engaged and working with him because that means I get another year of his development, and he, as of probably just tender his contract and give him $7 million next year and have him roll out there for another year, continue development, and let him play another year in the system and see how he works in the offseason, develops. How fabulous would that be to have another 365 days worth of data points? But this is a huge decision the Jazz have to investigate and run through and look at all these teams and try to figure out, slot this. Like, are the Knicks going to pay him? Because the Knicks don't have bigs, right? Like, run through the NBA rosters. Who would use Enes? And are they willing to pay him? Is that where, are the Knicks going to go to? And then if the Knicks don't try to undercut it, they cut him at like $9 million or $8 million. Does his agent take the deal? And if he's at $9 or $8 million, do we take the deal? Say, wait a second, well, we'll take that. Our third big, we'll pay Rudy and Derek, and then have Enes as our third big, and those will be our three guys, and we'll sign a low-price veteran fourth guy? Sure. Right? We're paid Trevor this year. Nope, Anyway, that's the situation. I thought we should break that down. I think it helps to kind of look at things. Let me see if there's any questions out there before we wrap this baby up today. There are. Cody Dover. Joe Ingles is really starting to click with his team. Do you think he is with the team more long-term or short-term? Joe's a fabulous guy. I think he's got a spot on an NBA roster. I think he's proven he can play. I think this system works very well for him. I think credit to Quinn to understanding how he can help this team and what he can do. His skill set complements the weaknesses of Trey and Dante so beautifully that, frankly, we haven't missed Alec very much. And the reason is because Joe's such a good ball handler. Right? There's times when we miss Alec for other reasons, but we don't miss Alec as much because of the fact that Joe can do things with the basketball, which Alec is not great at. I know we always want to turn Alec into a point guard, but it's not actually a very realistic thing. Joe is shooting better as of late, and I think this will be the key to what his role is. Here's the things that are terrific about Joe. His ball handling, his effort, his smarts around the team, his behind-the-scenes stuff is just terrific. His ability to play angles defensively and not get exposed with his lack of athleticism are all terrific. Here's a few things he's got to improve on. One, he has not been very good on the road. I don't know why that is. Maybe that's a rookie thing and new in the league. He's dramatically better at home than on the road. For the season, he's shooting 40% from the field and 31% from three. That's not going to cut it. Now, last 10 games, he's at 44% from three. And he's taking three a game. Three a game in 27 minutes. Probably needs to take a few more. He's only shooting 40% overall, so he's still not finishing at the rim. But he's averaging 4 assists. Like, that's better. As a rotation player in the NBA, sure. I think you're seeing some signs, and you're seeing his strength. He's figuring out his strengths inside of an NBA game. Riley Lewis, if the Jazz keep more or less the same roster, do you see this team getting next season? What record? Oh, I don't think we'll keep most of the same roster. I think that's unrealistic. But I mean, I think we're walking our way up, right? I mean, I think, okay, we're going to 25 last year, and maybe we're going to get to 30 this year. It's going to be tough. And then maybe if health holds and we build a little bit more depth in our free agency, then we can get to 35 or 38 along the way. Right? I mean, that's the walk. But the West is brutal. You can get better. I said this at the beginning of the year about us. I thought we would be a great deal better and maybe not win more games because you still have to beat somebody. You know, we can be a great deal better, but if the West is still as good, then you have to beat somebody. Help us understand the offense better. The guard brings the ball up the court. The first pass goes to the big at the top of the circle, hopefully at the elbow. Well, it depends. Depends what they're running, Taylor. Great question. Really depends what they're running. How about I will try to take some time tonight. When we're done with this, I'll go download the Jazz Warriors game, and I'll try and I'll download and maybe tonight in Portland, I'll try to see if I can find 2 or 3 plays that exemplify the differences of the outside flow versus the ball going to the elbow sets, and see if I can find 2 things to show that tomorrow. I don't think I can keep anyone engaged if I don't have some video for that. So it's a good question. All right, Slow Mo Joe's rookie rankings on ESPN is rising. It's probably highly unlikely you could pass Wiggins for rookie of the year. Make the all rookie. Philip, did you bump your head this morning? I know the rookie class hasn't been very good, but first team all rookie? Really? He's shooting like 38%. I love Joe. But let's not go nuts. Is the rookie class that bad? They're all injured? Maybe. Yeah, I don't. Mirachik, Wiggins. Should I not dismiss this as fast as I just did? There's got to be. Kid in Denver. He's playing well. Who else? Jabari's hurt. Randall's hurt. Gordon's starting to play. This is also, by the way, right about now is when rookies kick in. You know, Marcus Smart can start getting more time. He's actually playing pretty well. Elfrid Payton's all rookie. Wiggins is all rookie. KJ McDaniel's probably all rookie. Hasn't been great, but he's probably all rookie. Holy smokes. Dante Exum has played the 5th most amount of minutes of anybody in this rookie class because of the injuries? Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Well, I don't. Dante and Joe Ingles played more. Joe Ingles isn't on this list because I'm just looking at drafted guys. Joe has played. I got to pull up a number. Has Joe played more minutes than Dante this year, at averaging 20 minutes a game over 47? Probably. Holy smokes. I mean, I don't think there's a prayer because of my initial reaction would mean that people would have to investigate it like I just did, and I don't think most people will, but he's played 925 minutes, so he has played the same amount as Dante. He's played the 6th most amount of minutes of any rookie in the draft class. Oh, Mirachik is not in this draft class. So Mirachik's ahead of it. So Dante's played the 6th most, and Joe Ingles has played the 7th most amount of rookies of anybody in this draft class. And barring something crazy, no one's going to catch them. Wow. That's a stunner. Noah Vonleh, by the way, has played 84 minutes this entire season for Charlotte. For a top 10 pick, that's going to be like an all-time low. Without injury. I mean, he had a minor one to start the year. Wow. That's nuts. What about, are either of the kids in Brooklyn classified as rookies? Because they would probably have played more minutes. So Dante's played the 5th most amount of minutes in the draft class. And then I'm going to have to figure out where, if you include the Europeans, that those guys go. The 2 Brooklyn kids, I think they're rookies. Because they're pretty good. And Teletovic is out for the season, so and Bogdanovic. But Teletovic played last year, didn't he? Bogdanovic is a rookie, isn't he? There's two Bogdanoviches. This is like totally illegal. This is the first time this has happened in like we have the Phoenix drafted like another kid that's Bogdanovic. That like now I have to figure out which Bogdanovic is which Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic is a rookie. He has played 1,026 minutes, so he's played more. He's probably an all-rookie team. I don't know. Philip, I dismissed it, and now I'm wavering slightly. Interesting. Good job, Philip. I should have known better. All right. Run the ball with Marshawn Lynch, please. Run the ball with Marshawn Lynch. Have a good one. That is tip-off.